it was just a huge setback in my life. It's something that was just totally unexpected, which I guess lots of health and illnesses are largely unexpected in our lives. We often don't know that they're coming.
Welcome to the Be Well podcast, wellness backed by science, bringing you inspiring conversations to help you on your wellness journey to a healthier, happier you. Brought to you by Breast Cancer UK. You can start your personal prevention journey right now by taking our prevention quiz. Just click on the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome to the Be Well podcast. I am Thalie Martini, CEO of Breast Cancer UK. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by a truly phenomenal individual who's overcome an extraordinary life challenge to achieve Paralympic gold. Now, she grew up riding horses and spending weekends at stables with friends and was on her way to completing a psychology degree in 2016 when her life was turned upside down from a takeaway meal, which resulted in an E. coli infection and tragically led to multiple organ failure and permanent loss of sight. Now, my guest not only made an incredible recovery, but she went on to achieve big wins as part of the British cycling team, including winning gold in the women's B 1,000 metre time trial at Paris 2024, alongside her tandem partner, Danny Khan. Now, her story is one of an incredible trajectory that has come as a result of sheer determination and is hugely inspirational to people who are looking to take charge of their life and health, something that we are always really keen to hear about here at Breast Cancer UK. But I think her story is best told by her. So I'm so pleased to welcome Lizzi Jordan to the podcast. Lizzi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hiya, thank you so much for having me and for that lovely introduction. You've summarised it all so well.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to find out about you, and I'm really interested in finding out about your career because it didn't start in a very conventional way. You had to pick yourself up after really a quite major health setback only at the age of 19, when you were actually still at university and in early years. Can you share with us this experience and about how this life-threatening turn of events actually changed your whole outlook from a young age?
Yeah, definitely. So if we rewind back to 2017, I obviously acquired my disability from a very life-changing illness. E. coli, food poisoning infection, left me, as you said, with multi-organ failure. And the cruel twist of fate was I amazingly awoke from the coma, much to doctors' surprise, to even pull through it. But my sight had totally gone, which was a huge blow. So I had to relearn to live again without my eyesight. But on top of that, I was very poorly after the illness. So I had to go from learning to hold my head up again, to learning to walk, to learning to navigate my new life, but without my eyesight, which made it 10 times more scary. And it was just a huge setback in my life. It's something that was just totally unexpected, which I guess lots of health and illnesses are largely unexpected in our lives. We often don't know that they're coming. So I just acquired this new mindset and I thought to myself, I want to achieve more without my sight than I ever did even with my sight. So I just threw myself at these crazy challenges and the best outlet I found was sport. So I firstly took on the challenge of running the London Marathon in 2019 for the Royal National Institution for the Blind. I raised nearly £20,000 for them, which was extremely satisfying and extremely challenging at the same time. And it kick-started my desire to achieve more and more. And I found myself attending a British Cycling Talent ID Day in 2020, which was open for anybody visually impaired to hopefully eventually join the team as part of a tandem stoker role, which is riding on the back of the tandem with a sighted, able-bodied pilot. And yeah, I found myself being accepted onto the foundation team, which was a total shot in the dark again because I had little fitness, little experience in these kind of settings. And yeah, fast forward 6 years to now, and I'm 6 times world champion and Paralympic champion, which is something I would never, ever have dreamt of. So I look back and I think actually taking that step into cycling and throwing myself out of my comfort zone since acquiring such a life-changing disability was kind of the making of me, really.
Incredible. And you know, were you quite, I mean, you were into horses before it all happened. Were you quite sporty and, you know, this motivated already? Or was this something totally new that kind of took over your life?
Yeah, I was sporty when I was younger and I was massively into horses. Nothing on the elite level of sport that I'm into now, you know, a vigorous training schedule, 6 days a week, away competing internationally. It's a massive difference to the sport that I used to do when I was sighted. But yeah, as I say, it's been the making of me. And I think when you sit with a doctor that tells you that you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't have made it, you think to yourself, I want to make the the most of this second chance I've been given at life and take it and run with it.
And you certainly did. And I mean, obviously, this sounds to me like that's what it was that kind of drove you to push yourself and get you back into health, but also surpass all of what you'd achieved in the past. What was it? What was that kind of defining moment that made you go, I can do this?
I think I'm so determined and I love proving people wrong. I think people thought when I lost my sight and I was so poorly and I had to learn to walk again and I lost so much weight and ability and physical ability, that fueled my desire even more to prove people wrong and say, look what you can achieve after going through such adversity. And I think that's what kept pushing me forwards, because, even with the marathon, I started off just walking 5K and that would even make me sick. I was so poorly, like my body just wasn't up for it. And every time I had a setback, every time I took a step back, I wanted to take 2 forward. So I just kept feeling that desire to achieve more and more. And I found myself right at the top level of sport. So
incredible.
Crazy, really.
And cycling became your sporting choice. What drew you to this particular discipline?
I just found that once I got on the bike and the tandem, the sense of independence it gave me, because my life is I have to constantly rely on somebody to guide me when I'm walking around. I don't get around that quickly because I'm always looking out, pardon the pun, but sort of trying to sense any obstacles or anything in my way. And when I'm on the bike, I can just really push myself. And I love I kind of love the other senses that I can embrace when I'm cycling, because yes, I can't see what's around me, but I can feel the air rushing past me. I get that surge of adrenaline when we race, and it really makes me feel alive, because being totally blind, you can feel quite trapped in your own body, like you miss out on a lot of other things sort of visually. So to embrace all my other senses, it just felt really good when I got into it.
And are there any kind of cycling or other sporting figures that have been an inspiration for you on this journey that you've been on?
Do you know what? People often ask me this question. I generally don't have a sporting figure which has inspired me. I am hugely inspired by the medics that saved my life. Every time I go for a checkup or an appointment, just talking to someone that put blood, sweat and tears into making me have this second shot at life and all these opportunities, I've just got so much respect for them. And it just makes me want to keep proving to them that all of their hard work, what they've done to allow me to achieve this. So I would say they inspire me the most.
Wow, that is incredible. What a testament to them. And they would be just so proud and thrilled to know that, you draw your inspiration from them.
I was just going to say, one of the main haematologists that saved my life, because my E. coli turned into a blood condition. She came to watch me at the Paris 2024 Paralympics. She watched me win gold, which was just unreal. She kind of stood with my parents as the national anthem was sung, and it was just a real full circle moment.
Wow, it would have been utterly incredible. And actually, let's talk about that. 2024, you take home gold at the Paris Olympics. What an incredible achievement. Can you tell us more about the discipline that you won gold in? Because you mentioned earlier on that Paralympics is different, and these disciplines must be technically quite different as well. What kind of skills are being developed, and what kind of skills do you need to have to do what's known as tandem stoker? If you can explain this to us a little bit.
Yeah, so the main difference in my cycling is I'm obviously on a tandem, which is double bikes. I'm sat on the back, and my pilot, Danny Khan, sat on the front, and we're both pedaling on the bike. Obviously, she's in charge of the steering and the tactics and direction of the bike. So I compete across 4 events, 2 events in the velodrome and 2 on the road. It was the 1 kilometre time trial in the velodrome, which we won the gold in, which is 4 laps of the velodrome, which is 1,000 metres, absolutely flat out. So we do it in just over a minute. So you can imagine the speeds that we reach, covering a kilometre in 1 minute. It's different in the sense where I've got to have a lot of trust in my pilot. Obviously, I am totally blind, as I said earlier, so there's a lot of balance involved, a lot of communication, and just you need a great relationship with the person you're riding with, because you just have that mutual respect for each other and you're both working towards that gold. You've both got to be on your A game on the day.
And tell me more about that relationship, because that is a key relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely. So you see that 1 minute race on the bike and we win gold, but what you don't see is behind the scenes. You're totally reliant on your pilot on and off the bike. So 24/7 we're together. She'll assist me at meal times. She'll guide me around. So that relationship needs to be strong off the bike to ensure that you're both happy on the bike and want to compete for each other and want to be at your best.
And how do you, I mean, obviously you talked a lot about the need for that trust. I mean, how do you build that trust, and how long does it take to get to that point where you've got the trust to be able to be a winning item?
So Danny and I met late in 2023, and obviously we won the gold in 2024 in the summer, so we hadn't even been together for a year, but we instantly clicked as a partnership. So off the bike, I trusted her immensely to guide me. You know, her descriptions of everything was fantastic. She made me feel comfortable, and that does translate onto the bike really, because essentially she's in charge of me at sort of talking like 60 kilometres an hour. That's quite a responsibility for her, and it takes quite a lot of trust for me, but it fitted in perfectly with my kind of hobbies because, as we mentioned earlier, I used to be into horse riding, so I used to trust an animal to take me and trust it. So I'm not comparing my lovely friend and pilot Danny to an animal, but you do kind of gain that trust in somebody else, which I've always had anyway. So it's kind of all the tandem cycling has fitted perfectly into kind of my hobbies and what I love to do.
And did it fit also with the kinds of skills you developed as a horse rider, or was it entirely different?
Yeah, I would say there are transferable skills. I mean, the horse riding, you like to have a nice straight back and be sat nice and upright, whereas cycling, you get really low into an aerodynamic position, but they both take core strength, and both cycling and horse riding rely on really good balance and perception, which I'm lucky to have because being blind, your balance is hugely knocked. Often they say in the gym, if you want to test yourself for an exercise, you close your eyes, don't you? So you imagine sort of standing out the saddle on a tandem bike, not just me, but Danny also. So that's two people stood up on a bike, balancing it together at very high speeds. It certainly takes a lot of trust.
It certainly does. And I suppose trust from her part as well, trust in you as well as your partner with Danny.
Yeah, I mean, I remember she said when she first met me, she never guided somebody that's blind. She didn't want to patronise me, but equally she didn't want to not help me enough. So it took a lot of exploring for her, but we just both instantly clicked and found this mutual respect for each other. And we've developed a really good friendship as well off the bike, which is lovely because we'll go on training camps. And actually, I really enjoy that side of it as well as the cycling.
That's wonderful. So looking back now at 24, your gold win, did you really believe when you entered the race that the medal was actually within your grasp?
Do you know what? I'm always ambitious. And I think if you didn't believe you could get your hands on that gold medal, you shouldn't be there. Because that's the last part of that extra push that you get in that race, thinking I could win this. So I knew we'd trained hard. I knew it was quite relatively early in both of our careers together, but I thought there was a chance. And I think that gave us that extra push. Because when you get to the last lap of that race, your legs are absolutely screaming. And that's when we won the gold medal by I think 0.3 of a second or something, which is very, very tight. It was a very, very exciting race for my poor parents to have to watch coming down to the last lap.
That's incredible, isn't it? And I imagine most gold medalists themselves will probably share that piece of advice that you have to believe it's in your grasp to get it.
Yeah, and do you know what? Not even with the gold medal, I think anything I've achieved since losing my sight, I've had to believe myself first before I've achieved it, because that's the first step to achieving, in my opinion, believing you can actually do it. Any form of doubt, I think it holds you back hugely.
Yeah, that's sound advice. So tell us how it felt when you actually held that medal. And how did it feel to hear the stadium kind of erupt around you?
It's just, I've said this in a previous interview, when you hear that, the crowd in Paris, there was a massive crowd, and you just hear that roar, and I almost didn't need to see to feel the excitement. And that was so lovely to me, because I often think being blind, you miss out on so much, but it gave me goosebumps, the sound of the crowd, and just to know that my family and friends are out there. One of the doctors that saved my life, it was really surreal. And we got onto the podium, and Danny, bless her, just burst into tears, and they put this gold medal around my neck, and I thought, crikey, that is mine. And I thought, that is always going to be mine. And I can't even tell you how many people have touched that medal and worn it now. It's gone everywhere. It's been to Buckingham Palace. We were invited to Buckingham Palace after we won. It's been to some lovely hospices that I've done talks at. Do you know, it's been to so many different people that have enjoyed it and embraced it. And that medal isn't just mine. There's a whole community behind that. That's what I feel very strongly about sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the gold medal. You now have 6 world titles under your belt. So what keeps you motivated to keep pushing? Because I know there were challenges during COVID as well, because COVID meant that it was harder to continue. So what keeps you pushing through the grueling training that's necessary? I've got this burning desire to keep winning more and more. And I've got the medals hung in my training room where I sit for hours on my training bike. And sometimes when I'm struggling, I'll just reach my hand out and feel one. And I'll just remind myself of that feeling when you win that medal, because people see all the glory, don't they? The medals and the happy photos, but they don't see the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. When I sit there for 3 or 4 hours, absolutely destroying myself. But that is what gets you to those achievements. So I just keep reminding myself of how far I've come. And I'll often
remind myself of where I started as well. Thinking back to 2017 when I was about sort of 40 kilograms, just a bit of context, I'm 5'9", so very, very light, barely able to move. And I take myself back to that point and I remind myself, and I think, goodness me, I've come so far, and I want to keep going. I never forget reading a quote that said, if you want to get to the top of the mountain, you've got to enjoy the journey up there. So I'm very passionate about enjoying the training, and you want to get to the top and win the medals, but the rest has to be enjoyable. And it also said that you get to the top and then you look for a bigger mountain. So I've always setting my eyes on something else, and fingers crossed we'll be at the Commonwealth Games this year. So that's a huge goal.
How exciting. So what's the preparation? What's this grueling training? Can you give us a bit of an insight into your daily prep?
Yeah, so 6 days a week on a bike. A lot of mine is on a stationary turbo bike because I can't, especially in this winter, it's horrible to get out and about. And then I'll be in the gym 3 days a week as well. So 3 of my training days are double days. So I'll be in the gym in the morning and on the bike in the evening. So just 1 day off a week, which is quite grueling, but that's what you need to do really to reach those goals.
Yeah, gosh. And you're enjoying it as you go because you're working towards that goal.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, at Breast Cancer UK, we take staying active and physical activity very, very seriously. And that's because there are very strong links to good levels of physical activity and a reduced risk of breast cancer. And in fact, studies show that we can reduce our risk of developing breast cancer by around 20% by keeping physically active. But many people, unfortunately, experience quite a few barriers to staying active, both from a physical and a mental point of view. And I think accessibility is often an issue that comes up, particularly in sport, but in any form of physical activity. So I suppose I wanted to ask you how important accessibility is in getting people physically active, and how can we as individuals help to be better advocates for that and for equal opportunity for all?
Yes, it's hugely important. I do a lot of volunteering for Disability Rights UK, which do a lot of research into getting people with disabilities or barriers into sport, and I'm extremely passionate about it. And I think a lot of the problems with people getting into sport are often financial, which I have enjoyed a lot of sport from grassroots. So I started off with the local park run, totally free, turn up, lovely community of people, running at all different paces, so there's no worry as well what speed you're going to run at. Some people run 5k in an hour, some people run it in 20 minutes, but there's no discrimination, everyone's really friendly and welcoming. So I think financially is a barrier sometimes for people. Not everyone can afford to go to clubs or gyms or anything. So I think enjoying sport that's free. And as I say, I've kind of really got into the gym myself, and I've explored barriers myself with the gym, because you think I can't attend on my own. That's another barrier. But I've actually discovered that a lot of gyms will allow you to take a guide in for free. So I think it's just doing that little bit of extra research and not just stopping at the first hurdle when you want to get into sport and thinking, I can't do that, and actually looking beyond that hurdle.
Yeah, absolutely. And the freely park run is the most incredible thing. I went to a park run on Christmas Day, actually, and there were just so many people. I think there were it was in Northern England, in Lancaster, and there were 400 people, and it was incredible. And people from all walks of life. So yeah, such a really festive kind of atmosphere that kind of gets everybody going. It's a wonderful thing. But the other thing, I suppose, go ahead.
I absolutely love parkrun. As I say, I started parkrun back in 2018, just after I was poorly. And this is a perfect example of me. So I think it was the second or third one I'd done. I got halfway round and I just mentally lost it. I thought, I can't do this. I'm absolutely exhausted. So I went home. I got home and I said to my dad, I can't have this. I need to complete that. So we actually went back an hour later and finished the race.
Oh,
everyone had
incredible.
gone home. And I thought, in my head, this doesn't sit right. I need to have completed that 5K.
Well, that was a sign of what was to come, not giving up at all. Just needed that little break to kind of take it in and then get back into it. So one thing about being on the Team GB is that you'll have access to state-of-the-art equipment, and that must be amazing. I love the look of all the bikes, and it must be amazing to use the equipment. But, most of us don't have access to that kind of gear. You talked about parkrun being great, free and cheap exercise. What other exercise that's cheap or free do you like to do?
Yeah, so just going back from what you said, we are extremely lucky to have state-of-the-art facilities and equipment. We are funded by UK Lottery. A lot of our funding comes from, so we are extremely grateful for that. But as I say, I actually enjoyed a bit of tandem cycling long before I got into the elite sport. So quite a lot of local areas close to me will hire out tandem bikes, which are quite cheap as well. So obviously to buy your own tandem is very expensive, but you can hire them from a lot of local beauty spots. I did, and enjoyed the sport for relatively cheap, just with my dad actually. So you didn't need somebody with expertise on the front, just someone that can ride a bike, and I enjoyed sport through that way as well. So there are all these little avenues, like you don't need to be right at the top of the sport just to enjoy cycling or, like I said, running or anything like that really. And I also I enjoyed horse riding when I first acquired my disability. I went to the RDA, and they just they take donations for riding. So again, that was a relatively cheap access to horses as well. So another way of getting into sport if you've got a disability.
Yeah, brilliant tips. And, talking about really your own personal hurdles that you had to face, they were, very significant, but you have an incredible positive outlook on life. And what you've said is that you've gained more than you've lost in this whole experience. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so obviously throwing myself into sport, again, not just at elite level, on a local level, I've made so many friends, loads more social connections than I had even when I could see. And it's just really opened up a lot more doors to me. I found myself travelling the world in some incredible areas that I never would have dreamt of even venturing to when I could see. And a typical example of this is it's kind of encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone since getting into sport, because I had to go away with people I wasn't familiar with. And an example of that is even last week, I took a solo flight for my first time and I took the assistants at the airport. I never even travelled on my own when I could see. I would have thought, well, this is daunting. But I actually found myself doing it whilst being blind. And you know what? I spoke to some lovely people on the plane. Just because of the position I was in, they realised I was on assistance and they wanted to be more chatty. And I just think when I could see, I probably would have just sat on the plane with my headphones in. So in a strange way, it's opened up so many avenues to me, just taking that step out of my comfort zone and seeing what's beyond there.
Yeah, and having completely new connections with people as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, like a huge majority of my friends now are from post-sight loss than before.
Yeah, that is incredible, isn't it? Now, I want to talk a little bit about breast cancer. The fact that we have research that shows that around 30% of breast cancer cases could be prevented through small lifestyle changes. And so what this means is that if we equip people with the right knowledge, we can empower them to reduce their risk. And what I'd like to get from you is a sense of, why do you think it's important to focus on factors that we have control over, that we can change, rather than fixating on things that we can't change?
Do you know what? It's funny you say it, because I've always stuck by that moral. You can't change if you're faced with health problems, can you? But you can change how you respond to them or preventing them, like you say. So, for example, this isn't directly related to breast cancer, but my own health problems. The doctors have said that I would not be so fit and well if I hadn't have done all my exercise post-injury. So I had, following my illness, I had high blood pressure, I had some heart problems. And I've had cardiologists say that my heart, they just cannot believe how well my heart beats since all the exercise I've done, which is a huge testimony to all the hard work that I've put in. And that's been my choice, hasn't it? I could have just sat around and done nothing.
It is incredible. And has your strengthening physical health also helped you gain better mental resilience?
Absolutely. I find that physical exercise helps my mental health as well. It's like what they complement each other, if you see what I mean. So when I've done some exercise, I feel really good afterwards. And I keep reiterating this because I am very lucky to have the platform I do within elite sport. But exercise is racing a tandem on the world stage, but it also is going for a walk down the park. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't need to be a big thing. You don't have to go to the gym to exercise. You could enjoy a stroll with your family, or you could just get some extra steps in that day. It all still counts and it's all beneficial for your body. Yeah,
absolutely. And you've kind of answered my next question, which is a really important one, because we often talk about this at Breast Cancer UK, and that's finding ways to start new healthy habits. And it's often easy to start a new habit when you're having fun. And so what is it about the way you stay active that gives you the most pleasure? What is it in your physical activity that you enjoy the most?
I feel my body's limited after my disability. I can't see. I did have some health problems, but I love to enjoy what I can get out of my body, and I get a great sense of satisfaction doing things that I am capable of, because I spend a lot of my life thinking I can't do that because I can't see, and it is limiting. I can't go out independently unless I've got my white cane, but still that's very limited. So when I do exercise, I think to myself, wow, like this is my body working really well, and it's given me back after all it's been through. It's achieving something, and that really does does feel good.
That's incredible. Now, I want to move on to a question that we all love to ask our guest, and that's, with all the very healthy habits that you have and the determination and the grueling training, do you actually have some guilty pleasures that you indulge in?
Chocolate, straight out there. I might be sat here like an athlete, but I would never turn down chocolate. It's my total guilty pleasure, especially around this time after Christmas. Me and my sister earlier were just snacking all the leftovers, and I've got no shame at all.
Good on you. It's very hard to resist. And I was just complaining about the same. Well, not complaining, actually, just admitting the same thing today, was that I'm still eating the Christmas chocolate, and I'm very happy to be doing so.
Well, do you know what? It's sad when Christmas is over, but all you've got to think is Easter eggs are coming out, and they are out now, aren't they?
Yes. So if you can let the Christmas chocolates last a bit longer, then you just tag onto the Easter chocolates.
Absolutely.
The listeners our listeners also really like to hear recommendations from our guests. So do you have a book or a podcast or a film that's really inspired you that you would recommend to our listeners?
Do you know what? I don't have an exact one because I listen through loads of them. I love the podcast by Jay Shetty. He does a lot of loads of different podcasts and loads of different avenues that what's ever best suited to you, and they're all available on Spotify. So I listen to a lot of those. I listen to a lot of poetry as well. There's a poet, I forget her name now, she's on Instagram, and she writes some really good poems. So I find all that really inspirational as well.
Wonderful. And what about your future? What's coming up for you? You talked about the Commonwealth. I imagine that's what you're really focused on right now. What are some of your plans for the future?
Do you know what? I'd like to get a small job alongside my sport as well, because I feel like I have previously had one. It's really good for me to keep my options open and to keep focused on something else, because elite sport is fantastic, but it doesn't last forever. And I think after my illness, I've always kind of planned ahead. You see what I mean? Because you never truly know what's around the corner, do you? But if you can make yourself best equipped for what might be coming your way, lifestyle changes, career changes. So I always like to keep my options open. So I'd really like to get a small job alongside my cycling. However, I do enjoy a lot of volunteering for different charities as well, using my life experience to help them.
That's brilliant. And when will you find out about the Commonwealth Games?
I think very shortly. It could be at the end of this month, actually. So that's really exciting. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed,
and very good luck. We'll be looking out for you. Where can our listeners find out a bit more about you?
I've got an Instagram page, yes, Lizzi_Jordan. Lots of my Paralympic stuff's on there and all of my cycling. Yeah, there's quite a lot on there.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we'll make sure that we have all the links in our notes. It's been such a delight to speak to you. You are such an inspiration, Lizzi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Lovely. Thank you so much for having me again.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Well podcast, brought to you by Breast Cancer UK, a prevention charity supporting people to build healthy, lifelong habits and reduce their risk of developing breast cancer. You can start your personal prevention journey right now by taking our prevention quiz. Just click on the link in the show notes.